This post was sent to me by Kid Gravity, and shout out to him because he tagged me in it on X. And I'm gonna be completely honest with you, I had no idea, and still don't have any idea who this person is. But I said, you know what? I'll go ahead and entertain it because this is a topic of discussion that we've spoken about before on my channel when it comes to a particular group in the establishment. And this gonna come at a better time because Blacklight Revelations, shout out to Rob, actually did a video, well, actually a live stream a couple days ago from the time of me recording this video, where he was talking about basically whiteness in America. And I'm actually going to pull some stuff up later on to actually back up what this topic of discussion is. So it came right on time. So you have this person here by the name of Arthur Quan Lee. And on July 18th on his X page, he posted up White Lives Matter, even if JD Vance doesn't think so. Now, of course, we all know JD Vance is the vice president pick that Donald Trump selected to be his running mate for the upcoming election. So, and we already know what JD Vance's stance is anyway. A lot of people are questioning why 45 even picked him as his running mate, but you know what? That's their burden to bear. But this guy posted that caption up, and then he posted up this picture with this sweatshirt on that says White Lives Matter. And he got a lot of flack in his comments or in the post about what he said. One in particular read, "Not trying to be disrespectful, but do you consider yourself white or just rooting for that team now?" And his response basically told me everything that I needed to know. So here is his response right here. He says, "Why can't a man just love white people? I literally know dozens of non-Korean women who obsess about my racial heritage and aesthetic ideal." And I'm sitting here and I'm saying to myself, I'm looking at his response and I'm looking at the question that was asked. The question was, do you consider yourself white or just rooting for that team? And this was the response he came up with. This man completely dodged and deflected so far from the question, which begs the answer to me in his mind, but this is what he came up with, is he probably does consider himself to be that. I wouldn't be in the least bit surprised because he didn't ask him, why couldn't you just love white people? That wasn't the question. He says, do you consider yourself to be white? And this was the response that he gave. Y'all, this is the so-called model minority right here. This response right here told me everything that I needed to know when it comes to certain individuals in that community. Now, I'm not going to sit here and make a blanket statement and say all of them are like that, but I'll put it like this. Too many of them are like that. And he told on himself right here. No one told him that he couldn't wear the White Lives Matter shirt. But what I thought was also interesting, going back to the caption, was him saying White Lives Matter even if JD Vance doesn't think so. Mind you, in case y'all are unaware, and you know this is just a rhetorical thing, JD Vance is a white man. So I think he would know what whiteness is, especially since we've already seen his stance on a lot of things. I think he's well aware of that. But the way that this dude framed it, it's almost like he's trying to remind this white man who's been white all of his life and will be that way until he's 6 feet in the ground, what it is to be white. It's like they don't need your help or assist to telling you what whiteness is. They already know it, or he already knows it because he's lived it and he's always going to live it. Now imagine if someone who was white wore an Asian Lives Matter shirt and wrote the same type of thing up there and says Asian Lives Matter even if Arthur Quan Lee doesn't think so. Because now you're going to have people who was in your community looking at you sideways like you put them on a pedestal over your own people. I want y'all to understand this. A lot of people think that bootlicking only is involving with black people. And of course, we're going to say that because that's what we're in. This is our community. So we see them. We see them more than everybody else. But thanks to social media, you can find out that there are bootlicks in every group. And this Arthur Lee person is a definition of one, not just because of what he posted in the caption and the picture itself, but it's the response to the question that was initially asked. That was like one of the first responses that was given under the post. As you can see, it went viral. It got 11 million impressions. It got over 1,600 responses, over 3,300 reposts, and over 10,000 likes. And that first question right there, the response that he gave to it, literally he told on himself right there what he thought more so of white people, and he threw a diss at JD Vance in the process, claiming he doesn't know, since he doesn't know what a white person is, let me go ahead and define what it is for him, and post a picture of myself wearing a White Lives Matter shirt. This is the same thing that they came at with Candace about. They were basically telling Candace, look, we know that you are a supreme and utter bootlick, but we don't need your help on telling us what it is. You just do what we have laid out for you to do and stop overstepping your boundaries, which is why she got fired from the Daily Wire, and now she's doing whatever it is that whatever grift she is doing right now. You know, that woman got a new grift every 2 weeks. It's bi-weekly payments. And the same thing applies here. And the crazy part about it is, a lot of PC individuals don't really care for them like that. I mean, if you look at those anti-Asian hate crimes, I know they try to put that on the black people, but if you look it up, a lot of it is coming from them. So imagine you throwing yourself out there as a shield to protect them, and they wouldn't even bend over backwards to protect you, outside of wanting to use you for their agenda, such as what Charlie Kirk was trying to kick up a couple months ago, trying to say there needs to be some kind of PC and Asian alliance, much like they tried to do with the Black and Brown Coalition, that, again, in theory and on paper, does not work because it doesn't exist. Now, remember what I told you I was going to pull up this chart that Blacklight had pulled up on his live stream about whiteness in America. And this goes all the way back to 1878. So it has all these different groups on there from different backgrounds of what's considered white and what's not considered white, going all the way back then. And what you'll notice is, by looking at this chart, every Asian person, no matter what country they come from in the continent of Asia, has never been able to claim whiteness ever, because they wouldn't allow them to claim it. So going back to 1878, ironically, the Chinese are the first up. 1878, Chinese are not white. They tried again in 1890, and they said they were not white. The Japanese, 4 years later, not white. The Chinese tried again the following year. So you see in a trend here, they're trying their hardest to claim whiteness, but they're not allowing them to do it. So they did it again in 1895. The Japanese did it again in 1902, then in 1908. Then they even tried to do the person's half white, 1/4 Japanese, and 1/4 Chinese aren't white. So even if you have some white in you and you was half Chinese or half Japanese, they still didn't classify you as white. Asian Indians, they said, are probably not white. Asian Indians are white. So finally in 1910, they said Asian Indians are white, but still nothing for Chinese and Japanese. Speaking of Japanese, in 1910, they said they weren't white. Let's keep moving. Filipinos. Then they even took Asian Indians away in 1917 after they kept reclassifying over and over again to maintain that white status, and then they gave it back to them 2 years later. Koreans are not white in 1921. Japanese are not white in 1922. Now Asian Indians lost it again in 1923. And as you can see, the Chinese just gave up. They just gave up. They just stopped trying. They just stopped trying after 1909, when they said, look, if we can't even get it in with being half white, it's not going to work at all. Like, they just said, F it, it's not going to work. So many of you probably never even seen this before. Now, it's funny because if you look at it, they all pretty much, it's like Chinese, Japanese, Hawaiians, it says Burmese, Syrians, Armenians. All of them were trying to get under the status of whiteness, and only a small few of them made the cut. But Chinese and Japanese never made it, and they probably tried the most out of all of these groups. As an individual, that is. They had to do Asian Indian to be considered white. They couldn't just be Asian on their own. That's saying a lot. So I don't know if Arthur Quan Lee has ever seen that chart or not, or any of the other Asians out there who are seemingly having an identity crisis like this dude is, but maybe they need to examine that and really embrace their culture. I'm just saying.